Welcome, everyone, joining us tonight. I'm very excited. It's the 53rd Pearl of Wisdom, and it's on promise. So Mynoo is sharing the 7 hidden promises within a promise and how you can work with this understanding and what you can expect to gain from these revelations. So I don't know about you, but I'm like, what hidden promises are there? For me, promises are like, what is she talking about? A lot comes up for us with around promises. So I'm very excited to hear what Mynoo's going to transmit here so that we can have a deeper understanding of promises.
Thank you, Dea.
Yeah.
I'll take it from here. Thank you so much and welcome everyone. So yeah, I mean, a promise is actually, quite a loaded word in many places that I have noticed. And I just want to say one thing, Dea, if you just take care of the waiting room in the background and
Absolutely.
let people in, that would be great.
I
mean, as for some, what I noticed around promise, people had extreme reactions. There was no midway point when it came to promise. Either people were very clear they did not make promises. There was a very attached religious connotation to it, and that was not where they engaged. And they were on the other extreme. Okay, you want to use the word promise? Fine, I promise. It was like that. And when I understood this part, in my business collective, I often talk about, there's only one action that matters when you want to make the impossible happen, which is an action which is either a request or a promise. And I say that because I got to understand the 7 promises that are hidden when you make a promise. And because in my old incarnation, in my corporate incarnation, there was such a strong reaction to promise, especially when I went to work in England, that I too never used the word promise. I'll get it done. I'm accountable for that, but I would not use the word promise. Once I understood, these 7 hidden promises, I became vigilant and diligent about where I chose to declare a promise. And I started using it. It really, got me to understand that words have a power. And I have since, and many of you have heard me say this, each word has an innate vibration, and that is the power of that word. The innate vibration of a promise is like a declaration that has already occurred. So it gives a power to your declaration and anchors it in reality as if it has already occurred, just by using the word promise. So let's look at what are these 7 hidden promises. What is it? And it is these 7 hidden promises that give the power to a promise. The first hidden promise in the word promise is presence. So when you take on making a declaration of a promise, even when you do it flippantly, it's as if certain connections, in your internal wiring of your nervous system take place, that it presences you. And the reason why a lot of people become very uncomfortable by this declaration by using the word promise is we are often uncomfortable presencing our own presence. There's something or the other, like an undertone that's there. that has us feel that discomfort. And hence, the promise of presence, which happens the moment you use the word promise and declare anything as it is my promise, you immediately are present to your own presence. It presences you. So, yes, it takes a little getting used to. And once you get that as a human, when you start to be human, you are being love. That's what human being actually stands for. Human being love is what that whole sentence is. Being human is being love. Presencing your own presence in this amplifying frequency of love, which automatically amplifies. So what it does is love is such a frequency that it automatically amplifies and it anchors you. It stations you. So it allows you to infinitely expand and brings in that propeller power in it of amplification of love. So what presencing your presence does is it starts to switch on light bulbs within you, where you start noticing and coming up close and personal to the power that you uphold, that lies within you. And when you allow it to express itself by being love, you don't have to have a beat your chest bravado expression of it. You can simply be. It allows other people to simply be. And they experience themselves as powerful. That really is the power of being powerful, where others around you experience themselves as powerful. You don't have to beat it in. And a promise actually enables that. There is a gravitas to it. There's an automatic gravitas, and the gravitas really comes from the presence part. So if you feel disconnected from yourself at any point in time, you can look at what is it that I can declare as a promise. It could be a promise to yourself. Dea and I were talking before we all began, and Dea was saying, well, with promise, there's a lot of feeling of guilt and shame at not having kept our promise, and sometimes regret, sometimes repentance at relationships that might have broken down, or the destruction to the planet where humans did not keep their promise of being stewards of this, whatever it might be. That's why I said it's a very loaded word. When I first encountered this idea of a promise, and I felt intuitively that, and really I say that there's only one action that counts when you wish to make the impossible happen, which is a request or a promise. The impossible that I had taken on to make happen in my life at the time was to live an extraordinary life where all aspects of my life coexisted with ease, joy, and grace. And that felt like an impossible experience. I'd never experienced it before myself. I didn't even necessarily understand what ease meant. Joy, I sort of associated it with playing with my little baby and having a laugh. Grace, I had no idea what that was. And yet it was a declaration that came from within. And I declared it. I did not use the word promise, but I just declared it as if it is so. I felt the vibration of living that extraordinary life. I was actually in Bali at the time, in my room with a very severe infection on my right ankle, which wasn't going away, and a nice medley of lots of chronic health conditions. And I was by myself. Just so happened that 2 out of the 3 weeks that I was there, I was the only guest. And I made this declaration that the next phase of my life was going to be like this. And that's when the power of the declaration, I used to journal every day. I remember on the second day of journaling, after I had got this and I'd made this declaration, I got that this is what we call a promise. That's what my inner intuition said. And I was like, promise, what does that even mean? And then I remember me talking to others in my corporate life saying, oh, only two things matter when you're making the impossible happen, a promise and a request, not realizing the power of what I was saying at that time. And then it was, okay, I do want to make this impossibility into a reality. What also got revealed to me is impossible is actually I am possible. And it was a journey of converting what I had interpreted impossible as into really going to who I truly am. I am possible. By declaring this promise of living an extraordinary life where all aspects of life coexist. And that's where these 7 promises, hidden promises, started revealing themselves over the next 9 years. The first one that I got was presence. And the time I declared this was February 2010. And I had all of these health conditions. October 2010, I was in India. My mother had just crossed over. And from the age of 32, she had a whole host of physical ailments. So we all went to the hospital and did a whole 7-hour-long diagnostic. Decided we're going to take our health in our hands and we're not going to be dependent on medication. That was another promise I made to myself. No medication. As a conscious choice, no medication. And me and my sister had gone. And if I know there are some of you here who know my sister, she's slim, trim, tall, very, very, very like glowing. So when the results came back, there was in her report, there were various heart issues and cholesterol issues and sugar issues and stuff. And in my report, all of those things that I had, from diabetes to thyroid, hypothyroidism to hormonal imbalance, to hypertension, to that flutter in my heart, which caused that missing heartbeat, as well as whatever comes when you have this infection, which had actually disappeared by that time. And my report was completely clear. When the doctors came out with the report, they brought my sister's report to me because I certainly looked the part, I was overweight and didn't certainly look slim, trim, and fit. And actually, it was the other way around. So in a matter of 9 months, making the declaration of living an extraordinary life as a promise where all aspects of life coexist with ease, grace, and joy, I reconnected to my own presence. My body was screaming. It was screaming because I wasn't connecting to it. I was not present. I was there, but not presencing my presence. And I had, by that time, 3 weeks had already become 9 months, and it went on to become 9 years in Bali. When I started acknowledging my presence, and inadvertently entered this realm of presencing my presence, this hidden promise of the benefits of presence and presencing my own presence really became available to me. And it truly was ease, joy, and grace. Yes, my body was recalibrating. I was doing different type of work. I was literally engaged in full spectrum living, not just mental, intellectual, and physical stuff. So it required to have certain shape and whatever, but health transformed in that time. And that came from declaring this as a promise. Automatic consequence of that was becoming present, starting to be comfortable in my own presence, and then proactively presencing my presence. Nature played a very big role in that. I wasn't a tree hugger. I used to actually laugh about it when people talked about it. And I did not necessarily become a tree hugger, but I started really enjoying walking in the forest. And in Bali, we had so many opportunities. And I would sometimes just sit under a tree and feel as if the tree was enveloping me. And I got that the tree was enveloping me in okayness, which is the vibe that a tree naturally carries because it's present. You know, that desire that I had before, the insatiable desire of extreme polarities, you know, that was very much a part of my life, you know, going for like being highly competitive and being the best at what I did, or feeling completely collapsed if I hadn't quite achieved that. That disappeared. It was all black and white, and I started enjoying the shades of gray or shades of green. Started noticing the shades of the rainbow. It's just pretty amazing what happened. As I was presencing my own presence, I was presencing nature and all the nuances that come with it. All arose from, I'm saying a simple declaration. It was a declaration that really did, you know, it created a knot in my stomach, created a flutter in my heart, and gave me spring in my step, all in one. I just felt that was it. That was my opportunity to live an extraordinary life where all aspects of life coexist with ease, grace, and joy. And I was going to use whatever I could have access to because I didn't know how to do it. If declaring it as a promise was a way, I was going to do that. And you can choose that for yourself, whatever it is. And many of you are regulars here. You've heard me say, choose aliveness. That is the purpose of life. You know, and if you have something very, very clear, think positive world that David and Helene are a stand for, that's great. Work with that. Declare it consciously as a promise. And all of these hidden promises really are delivered to you. And all the benefits that they come with. And we've only talked about the first one. We're already 20 minutes in. The second promise. This is like, you know, I thought I knew everything about this one. It's Rainmaker. A promise is a rainmaker. Seriously, I mean, you know, to me, a rainmaker in business, essential. And I was an entrepreneur. Converting ideas into business was my gig. And in the context of a promise is a rainmaker, and it absolutely has been a rainmaker for me. A rainmaker is someone who can influence or initiate progress or ensure success. In business, you often talk about a rainmaker in the context of business coming in. So the business is successful. When you declare something as a promise, you become the influencer who can initiate progress and ensure success. You actually activate your collaborator and co-creator in this, which is the universe, who enables you to ensure success by multiplying that which you bring forth or you share. So by me making that declaration of living an extraordinary life, experiencing the trepidation of not knowing how to do it, and choosing to do it anyway, presencing myself every day, acknowledging the trepidation, acknowledging the concern of whether or not I would be able to pull it off, I actually started noticing. Every day I would notice, I would journal, where did I have more than one aspect of my life coexist today with ease, grace, and joy? And that is like the catalyst to rainmaking in the context of initiating progress and ensuring success. Because a promise, and remember, whenever I do these pearls of wisdom, and we have the 7 ways or 7 pathways or whatever, 7 facts, today we are talking about 7 hidden promises, I always say to people, I go through it in a sequence, follow the implementation of this in the sequence. It prepares you to get more from the next one. Each one of these transforms your life. You can do only one of the, you can activate only one of the promises hidden within a promise, and it will transform your life. And you can actually go sequentially. So you build on it. If you've already experienced the gift of presencing your presence, you are ready with your own increased capacity in up-leveling your vibrations. So the universe has already, clicked into gear, and it's starting to multiply your up-leveled vibrations. And you start experiencing progress, start acknowledging progress, start recognizing whatever you, and whichever way you choose to define success, and it automatically regenerates and multiplies. All a function of you having declared something as a promise, your promise. And when you are being something in one area of your life, it percolates and multiplies across all areas of your life. So if you're being a rainmaker in the context of, like in my case, at that time, the rainmaker progress and success was to do with extraordinary life, living an extraordinary life with ease, joy, and grace, I started noticing that. It took me from February until April that year to really know that, wow, actually, one, I never knew I had so many areas of my life. When I first declared it, I knew I had a home life and a business life. And then suddenly me appeared, so me time appeared. Connection to me was present. And then from that emerged these amazing gifts that I started developing of writing, of painting, and so many more that just keep coming. It literally felt exactly like those times in business when I had the perfect rainmaker to start off a business. That's how it felt in life. A promise is a rainmaker. It makes you a rainmaker for your own life, for your own intentions, for your own choices, and you become a magnet for exactly the right rainmakers to come in to support you in realizing your resolve. It's up to you to be present and presence them as you notice them. Sometimes they come. The moment we make a promise, they come. People, you start magnetizing that, which is going to enable you to fulfill that promise. But we don't necessarily notice them. So if you've actually done the work with the first promise of presence and received its gift, at a cellular level, you have a memory of what that feels like. You automatically start presencing what the resources that you're magnetizing. This applies to good and bad promises. I've seen people, and in a very recent occurrence, there's one particular family member had a serious issue with something to do with visas for his family, and it was an agent that was working it, and he just like declared like a promise, that I do not trust these. They're not trustworthy. They are going to make one mistake after another. And I was like saying to him, hang on, relax. Don't make it a declaration, which has the vibe of a promise, because it's a rainmaker. And, it was so ridiculous, the kind of mistakes this agent has been making. Issued his ID with the wrong spelling, and then realized, he was told that the spelling is wrong. So he goes in and applies it, sends a new form with the correct spelling. A new ID arrives with the wrong spelling again. I mean, that was the rainmaking impact of this guy's declaration that they're just going to make one mistake after the other. Well, God knows if they made a mistake or not. The bottom line is the end result was that it wasn't correct. It was hilarious. I mean, we just laughed about it. And then this person also had to see the humor in it and regroup themselves. And literally within hours, there was a new business product that they were launching, which wasn't moving. Nobody was registering for it. And it had been out there for nearly a week. Within hours, registration started coming in. And within 2 days, they had the highest number of registrations for a product launch online event than they had for any other product launches. Because they switched. It is a rainmaker. And you receive the rainmaker benefits in multiple areas of your life exactly as how you require it. The third one is, it's a promise of ownership. A hidden promise of ownership in a promise. So what happens when some declaration is made and you know who owns that, and you're dealing with the owner? There is a level of trust that automatically builds. So you become someone who's exuding that trust. So me declaring as a promise, the next phase of my life is living an extraordinary life with ease, joy, and grace, where all aspects of my life coexist. I made the declaration in February. In May 2010, I did my first journey into miracles, inviting people to share what I had experienced. And then it's gone on and multiplied from there. People trusted me. I didn't look like, and before that, it was like, you have to be dressed a certain way, you have to look a certain way, to have that gravitas and authority. I was bald, wearing flowing Bali dresses and flowers in my hair, and very comfortable with not knowing. And I was inviting people to pay quite a significant sum of money to experience what I had experienced in Bali. But I was owning that. I was also owning the work in progress aspect of where I was with this journey. But I was working with that in a concerted way. So people could see that, people could experience that what I was saying was what I was experiencing. And they wanted some of that. I owned that space. It's like you own your real estate. And your real estate here in a promise is your promise. But each promise has its own holographic vibrations and various elements that come together for that promise to be realized. It becomes a stake in the ground around which your tribe starts to form. Because by the virtue of your declaration, you have presented yourself as the owner. Not everybody, will relate positively to your ownership. And because you are already comfortable presencing your presence, you've experienced the Rainmaker multiplier effect, that's okay. Some people will like it, some people won't. I had people say to me, what language are you using? What is this? It's okay for you, but don't go public with this. I remember my niece saying to me, Mynoo auntie, whatever you do, do not post a photo of you on Facebook with your hair shaved off. It's too embarrassing. I have to explain this to my friends. I didn't go and hide. I owned that space, and it continued and multiplied from there. And that, when somebody owns, that's why we're going to talk about that. It's coming up as the fifth promise, iconic. When somebody owns the space, there is a natural trust. Trust is a very important aspect of brands that you choose to, follow or support. And that's true of everyone, whether they do it consciously or unconsciously. Each one of us is our own brand, So this is an automatic promise hidden within a promise. You declare yourself as the owner. With that ownership comes your ability to garner trust, to engender trust, and it garners support from sources known and unknown. And you are present to be able to leverage those as you go along. The fourth promise hidden within the promise that you make is manifestation. It manifests. It manifests that which you declare consciously as your desire, or that which gets shot up like a rocket of desire, and it's a subconscious declaration. Manifestation is guaranteed. And what I saw for myself here is, in the context of manifestation, I didn't know how to live an extraordinary life where all aspects of life coexisted with ease, joy, and grace. And the only way that was going to occur is through manifestation. So I had to learn, how do I manifest? The secret had come out, and I was really curious to get to the secret underpinning the secret philosophy that was shared in the movie. And that is to do with vibrations. Now, when you have made a declaration of a promise, remember, this is the fourth promise. By that time, I had already made some significant inroads in promise 1, promise 2, promise 3, presence, Rainmaker, ownership. I was already in a state where I was flying high in terms of my vibrations. So I knew that all that has to occur is for me to notice, acknowledge, receive, and accept the impact of my vibrations being multiplied. It is in working with this fourth promise, hidden within a promise, the manifestation, where I understood more deeply what the universe is and how it operates at a level of nuance. I've had many, many teachers. Abraham Hicks made a huge contribution to me at that time. And nature, my God, nature. The cool thing is, the moment I declare something as a promise, and I'm saying I because I did that, and I'm sharing everything that I share, by the way, in all of these pearls of wisdom or anything else, I implement for myself first. So it's coming from that understanding of firsthand dealing with some of the challenges that one has to deal with as you're living your life. It is manifestation guaranteed, no huge process required. Simply declaring that which you stand for, that which you intend as a promise. And allowing yourself to acknowledge, notice, receive, accept the hidden promises playing out, and then working with them more with conscious awareness so that you can anchor a remembrance of each of these promises. Manifestation is guaranteed. Literally, manifestations abound, and they are grounded. With a promise in itself, you actually are declaring what is it that you wish to manifest. By being present to it, like this person I was talking about, by declaring that this agent is going to create problems, one problem after the other. He was being very, very clear and precise about what he wanted to manifest. And sure enough, it was manifesting. What I understood when I engaged with this particular promise, hidden in a promise, what I understood is this whole idea of when something untoward happens, something that you don't want to happens, our subconscious immediately shoots up like a rocket of desire, being completely clear about what it is that it does want to happen. So when this person that I'm referring to, well, all I had to do was to get him to see that he really did not want the agent to be making these mistakes. He wanted it to be really smooth sailing, what required to be done by the agent. So a rocket of desire was already shot up to that effect at a subconscious level. So for him to switch, it was a click of a finger. I mean, the click lasted, maybe like 20 minutes of conversation, but it literally was a complete day and night switch or night and day switch. But I got him to engage, and you can do this. When something has occurred in your life, it may have occurred now or it may have occurred in the past. When something occurs that you do not wish to have occurred, even if you have, gotten over it, as an energy signature, it's in your field. You can get the juiciness out of everything that has ever happened in your life. You can pick any incident, even though it may not be in your conscious awareness right now, but it has occurred. Choose any one of those and engage with what was the rocket of desire that my subconscious would have shot up at that time, given that this thing occurred that I did not want to happen. What was the vibration? If I experienced that rocket of desire, what is the vibration that I would be experiencing? And then you start noticing where in your life you are experiencing that vibration. Acknowledging it multiplies it. Manifestation bandwagon starts to roll. So for me, I was constantly looking at the time, what is the rocket of desire that had shot up when I realized that, my 7.5-year courtship that converted into a marriage became an experience of domestic violence in the first year. It's like, okay, what was the rocket of desire that shot up at that time when I had my first hit? And it was to do with, exquisite and experiencing exquisite, enchanting, fulfilling relationship of collaboration, co-creation, rich in and enriched by romance. Okay, if I had that, what would I be experiencing as a vibration? And I started looking for where in my life I experience that now. And I started acknowledging that. It just ensured what I was manifesting was an extraordinary life where all aspects of life coexist with ease, grace, and joy. And you will choose your own and work with it. The fifth promise hidden within a promise that you declare is iconic. It's useful to understand what is iconic. You can say you often use it as it's a widely well-established brand or a name. But really what we're doing is iconic means it's widely known and acknowledged specifically for its distinctive excellence. To me, that really is the true meaning of iconic. And who is the iconic one? Here you are. When you declare something as a promise and you do it with conscious awareness and you start leveraging the benefits of each of the promises hidden within that promise, you start sharpening, polishing yourself as an iconic presence for that which you have declared. And you automatically start becoming widely known and acknowledged for your distinctive excellence in what you have declared as your promise. This can work both ways. So this person declaring that this agent is going to make one mistake after another. He's a phenomenal accomplisher, a powerful communicator. But for this period of time, we're talking about 6 weeks or so, people who were his great admirers actually didn't want to know him at that time because he became acknowledged and known for his excellence in completely destroying somebody's confidence to such an extent that they just can't get anything right. Because he declared this negative thing as a promise. All of these things that I've talked about were being delivered one after the other. And again, it's okay. The moment you get it, stop your pattern. Even if it is a train wreck, you can still salvage some powerful resources out of it. Learn from that and create a new train. Because there are tracks that are already laid for those that declare something as a promise, which is what they intend to realize. You do not have to wait for it one day, someday in the future. Your promise can be aliveness, as measured by experiencing that yumminess of flow. That's a good enough promise to get started and experience all of these hidden promises and the benefits that arise from within. Your promise itself becomes iconic. Journey into miracles as one that gives you the 7 pillars of living an extraordinary life, where all aspects of life can coexist with ease, grace, and joy. I did nothing of the sort that I did in my corporate life to create an iconic brand. I was known for that. It became an iconic brand just by the virtue of its declaration and my implementation of that very diligently. And it had an impact on me too, becoming known and acknowledged for a distinctive excellence in this particular area. The 6th promise hidden within a promise that you declare is synchronistic. When you make a declaration of a promise, synchronicities start to occur left, right, and center. And they show up in small ways and big ways, finding that perfect parking spot. You know, someone you think about calling you. From little things like that to seeing, magical numbers, 1111, 2222. Starting to notice that too. Noticing that when you get down to doing something and you require something and you ask the question, well, how do I do this? Someone shows up, or you receive a phone call, or a book falls, and you open the book at exactly the page that has got an answer. We've all had these magical experiences. We just may not have noticed them. I never noticed this kind of stuff. And in fact, when I did, I refused to acknowledge it because I didn't want to give my power away to some woo-woo stuff. And hey, it's real. What's woo-woo about it? It did happen, I did say when I created the Inspired Leaders Network, I had listed 12 names of inspired leaders. If they became a part of the Inspired Leaders Network, they were such powerful influencers and had so much respect that this particular business idea would become a business in no time. And it was literally just choosing those. And then I went into, okay, this whole concept of 6 degrees of separation. I'd just seen the movie, with Will Smith. And I thought, okay, how many degrees of separation do I have from them? And then it was like, if only one of those people, calls me magically out of the blue. And then I said, if I had my choice, which of these 12 would be the first one that I would go for? And there was one particular person. He had built 4 multi-billion-dollar brands, really master of building iconic brands. And I so wanted to learn from him as a mentor, but he was completely unreachable, someone who wasn't very in the public eye so much. You knew him from his brands. I knew who the person was, really wanted to get to him and ask him to become my mentor. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if I got him, not only to be an inspired leader, but also to mentor me in creating this? And that was it, that's all I said. I had a consultant who was working with me at the time. And we would, even though I wasn't doing any particular project with him, we would once a month just have breakfast together. So we were at the Institute of Directors and we were meeting up for breakfast. And I thought I'll just ask him. I said, well, Rob, I want to get to this guy, the guy who created this first telephone bank, and would love for him to, would love to run this idea past him. And he says, oh, I'm his coach. I'm meeting him this afternoon after my meeting with you. What? And then he calls me. He says, well, he's happy to have lunch with us. Are you available for lunch? That day itself. It took me, several months to convince this person to become my mentor. I guess my left brain went, it can't be so easy. But he did, and he mentored me for 13 years in my corporate life. And I didn't realize this. He would often say that I was his mentor in entrepreneurialism, because he'd only ever worked in huge corporations and created his innovative brands from within a corporation. So talk about deeply meaningful coincidences which mysteriously occur in your life. That is synchronistic. Deeply meaningful coincidences which mysteriously occur in your life. They are occurring all the time, actually. When you have a promise declared as a promise, there is a connection that you can make to the fulfillment of that promise. At that time, my promise was creating an inspired leaders network. These weren't inspiring leaders. These were inspired leaders who didn't necessarily need to be acknowledged even for what they'd done. They were delivering extraordinary results and doing so again and again. And lo and behold, all I did was made that declaration. It was a little bit audacious, a declaration in understated England that we are creating the Inspired Leaders Network. Many of my colleagues even said to me, people won't want to be called inspired leaders, it's too odd. And even though I wasn't spiritual, for me, it just felt like the right thing. So I stayed with it. And I'm glad I did. It was so once I'd created the Inspired Leaders, talk about synchronistic here. And we had a good collection of leaders from the UK. I realized that actually there is only so far I can go within the UK. There was so much happening in other parts of the world, Silicon Valley, as well as, Brussels was coming up with all of these different amazing European policies, and some phenomenal organizations were being created in Europe too. So I thought, what I really want is to have the Inspired Leaders Network be the go-to place for these leaders. Because it gets really lonely at the top when you've created an innovation, and you're on the spotlight. You sometimes don't fully share the full extent of the innovation with people. So, but our inspired leaders, in the UK, I used to see these amazing leaders would come together, and for them, it was their tribe. People weren't from their own industry, but they were all innovative leaders. Best insider secrets would get exchanged. So I wanted it to become international. So how do I do this? Become international in a way that I write to someone, email someone, or pick up the phone and they take the phone, and I can get past the gatekeepers. I thought, what if I actually initiate a study of these leaders with the intention to create an Inspired Leaders Index? And it is financed by a very serious department of the UK government, and the UK government is behind me to do this. That sort of study takes a long time to orchestrate, right? I just had to declare that we are going to develop an Inspired Leaders Index. We are like the place where these inspired leaders gather. We can study them, you know. And I shared it with a senior civil service officer from the Department of Trade and Industry, just as a desire. And before the end of the financial year, every department has to use up its budgets. This guy calls me up and he gives me a sum of money and says, I have this left over in the budget. That thing that you talked about, this study, can you go ahead and do that? So lo and behold, that began, and it became a 6-year study. And it gave me an opportunity to meet and study some amazing leaders from around the world. Synchronicity. Deeply meaningful coincidences which mysteriously occur in your life. There's nothing woo-woo about it. It actually occurred. I acted on it. And the 7th promise, hidden within a promise, is extraordinary. It's that, to me, extraordinary is, and it has this flawless, flowing yumminess on tap. The consequence of operating in that way is what I call as inspired velocity. Speed in the right direction, where every moment of that journey in spirit, I am stationed. That's my definition of extraordinary. And that is the promise of declaring a promise. And it works both ways. This person I'm talking about, the agent, is going to make a whole variety of problems. It was completely extraordinary that the agent actually does the right thing to change the name on his government ID, and still the government decides to issue the ID with the wrong spelling. Extraordinary. There was complete, flawless yuckiness. So it's your choice. You choose what you declare as your promise. Each of these automatically get activated because they are the hidden promises that you can benefit from, or you can be completely stopped by. Everything is a function of what is the promise that you are making. With that, I invite you to have a go with it, Work with at least one of those between now and the next week we meet, sharing a pearl of wisdom. Over to you, Dea, to complete and close.
Yeah. Well, do we have time for a quick question or not?
1 minute.
Okay. So this is on my mind, so it might be on others. What if you have to renegotiate a promise? Like you made a promise and something changes. Does that affect all the hidden elements there? What?
If you look at the overarching, it happens all the time. The thing is that we sometimes hide. We don't go back and renegotiate. And that is where the guilt and the shame and all that comes in. And bulldozing your way through something which is very clear is not something you're now committed to also takes you in the wrong direction. It has a power of a promise, but you have all of those yuckiness experiences. So because promise, one of the first hidden promise is presence. Because you operate from your own presence, you're able to pick up where there is discord, or where you're not completely in alignment or where a conflict occurs, and you can act immediately. You choose. But it presences you so you know every time you've said something as a promise, you know as an undertone when you're not fulfilling it. Don't let it pass. Just pause, inquire, why am I not fulfilling it? Maybe that's not what I'm about anymore. It can happen. Okay, so who are the people that are affected by this? The next pearl of wisdom is request. You go and make those requests of those people to either release you of that promise or or declare something else. But it's a very, very good question. It's not a trap. A promise is not a trap. When it brings you into your presence, you can actually, with presence, act in a timely fashion. Keep that finger on your pulse, on the pulse that really matters. But thank you for asking that question.
Thank you, Mynoo. That was really great. Thank you, everybody, for joining tonight. It was a wonderful, wonderful transmission once again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. I declare our session complete. Thank you. Enjoy creating your promises.
Thank you, Mynoo.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Mynoo.
Thank you.